Hi and welcome to Sparkle Tart.
Hello and Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas season at least anyway. Today I'm going to give you all my best tips for creating a killer Christmas shaker card. Now it starts with Lindy's, finishes with Prima, and you know with that combination it's going to be gorgeous. And I'm going to be using an unusual Christmas colour combination. I'm going to be using grey, white and rose gold. So let me show you how to make a beautiful Christmas shaker card. Now I should probably mention that this gorgeous Christmas project is part of a blog hop with just a few names you might recognise. So don't forget to check underneath this very video in the description for a link to all of the other hoppers participating. There are some great giveaways and even better projects for you to check out and get inspired this Christmas. The base of my colour combination is coming from the beautiful rose quartz paper pad from Prima. Now this is just the small one and it has all of these gorgeous colour combinations in there. And I'm going to be using these two pieces of paper to create the basic colour for my background. So I'll be working from darkest at the base of the card up towards the lighter colours. So these will be layered over the top of each other. I've also got some fantastic memory box dies, and these are the tree branch circle and the deer family circle, and these are cut to the same size so you can layer them, which I thought was a really cool idea. So I like that a lot. So I'm going to be doing that. And of course, I'm going to use some of my beautiful Lindy's Stamp Gang Starburst and Fabio sprays to add a little bit of shimmer, because if you can't add shimmer at Christmas, when can you add it? Although I do maintain that shimmer and sparkle are appropriate all year long. So I'm going to be using Sidewalk Chalk, Gag Me with a Spoon Grey, and Silent Night Silver. So let's get started on the base layers. So the first thing I need to do is create two different coloured background panels, and I'd like the colours to be relatively smooth. So the first thing I'm going to do is spritz these two pieces of, it's cardstock but it's not particularly thick, with some water. Now it appears I had some previous colours in here. I'm actually just going to leave it like that so that I get a bit of variation in my pieces here. Now if that's not your kind of thing, then make sure your base is beautiful and clean first. But for me, I find it kind of adds to the interest, even if it's only in a small way. So I'm going to start with Silent Night Silver, and I'm just going to spritz this over one of those pieces of cardstock. Try and get it as even as possible. Woohoo! Ding, ding, ding! I've just finished a bottle of Lindy's. Fantastic. Okay, so that's one. And the next piece of cardstock I'm going to cover in Gag Me with a Spoon Grey. As I look at this, I'm getting the feeling that this Silent Night Silver won't quite be dark enough. So I'm going to add some Toto's Tornado Black. I'm just going to wet it down again, just to make sure that the black doesn't end up in, I don't know, weird spots. Like that. Because I don't want it to take over. I just want to darken it. Now this is really, really wet. It's going to take forever to dry. But that's going to look so much prettier. That's going to look great. Now I've also made sure that I've done two pieces of card that are much bigger than what I'm going to need, just in case I might like to make any embellishments for the front of the card out of the same colours. And it's much easier to do one larger piece than it is to try and match the colour afterwards, especially when you've used more than one colour to achieve the look that you're going for. Now I'm going to need to let these dry for a few hours before I can use them. I could use my heat tool to speed that process up, but I will get watermarks or drying marks, whereas if I leave them to air dry, you'll get a much more smooth background. Now, while those other layers are drying, I'm going to add a few little bits of Lindy's to these 2 pieces of Prima cardstock, just so all of the layers kind of have matching elements. I don't want to add any shimmer to this one because I'd like each of the layers, whilst coordinating, to be a little bit different to each other. So I'm going to add some sidewalk chalk over here, but not very much, as you can see. And then on this lighter piece of cardstock, I'm going to add some of the Gag Me with a Spoon grey and some of the Silent Night silver. If you'd like these to stay in spots, dry them with a heat gun. If you'd like them to sort of wick out into the cardstock, then let them air dry. And then I'll leave this side to air dry. Time to start building the base of the card, and for this one I'm going to use 120 pound cardstock, and this one happens to be the Pure Luxury cardstock from Gina K. And I'm using this because I know my base is going to need a bit of extra thickness because of what I'll be putting on top of it. Okay, so I have my card base, and then I've cut my bottom layer and my top layer to fit onto this quite neatly. So this bottom layer is 13.5 centimetres by 13.5. The card itself is 14 by 14 centimetres. And then the layer that's going to act as my top layer. Now the next thing I need to do is decide exactly where I want my design on the card, because I'll need to cut some holes. So if I put it slightly off centre, I have room for some decorations here and a little word down in the corner, and I think that's what I might like to do, so something a little bit additional to my centerpiece. Now I don't need to cut any holes in those bottom layers, so what I will need to do is find the center on the back of this. This is the back of my piece of card. I've marked the halfway point so I know where to make the center. I've blocked off 2.5 centimetres at the bottom just so that I will offset where my actual circle goes. And then I've marked the centre of just this top section. Measure your die and make sure that the hole you cut in this front section is just a little bit smaller than the actual die itself, just so you can't see any of the outside pieces. So the next step is to cut a circle in this piece of cardstock here. Alright, so I found a nice circle die that is about the right size. It might be a little bit too big, but that's the best I can do. So now all I have to do is make sure that this is in the right spot and then tape it down. Now that's probably a little overkill, but I'd rather overkill than have it wiggle. And I've got a beautiful, crisp, clean circle. So for the front of my card, you're going to have that fabulous show through of this nice dark contrasting layer. It's going to be great. And then use both of my dies to create a little scene to go inside that window. Alright, so my beautiful pieces of Lindy's background paper are dry. And this one's taken up a little bit of a red tint from the underneath. It must have been something on the cardstock. And I almost wish that I could just use this back side because, wow, it is so, so pretty. But I need the front for the silver. And the same here. So that silver shimmer is just crazy, but you can see it's picked up a little bit of extra colour just from whatever was on my tray. And again, the back of this, oh, So pretty. So when you're doing this kind of technique with your Lindy sprays, make sure to turn it over because sometimes you may like the back. You can always add shimmer afterwards. So all I really have to do now is cut some squares from this cardstock that are a little bit smaller. That's better. We just needed to cover that. Now make sure to keep these little offcuts in case you'd like to use them for any extra decorations. So if I just pop that here, I'm just going to draw in pencil where I need to place my die. And just the same here. Now all I have to do is cut these out. Now from that whole background, all we're going to see are the little deers really. And the same here, all we're going to see from this are the trees. But this is going to be the beginning of the card. Can't wait to see how this looks when it's finished. Now the other thing you need to do at this point is decide if you want any stamping on your background. I'm going to choose not to put any on there at the moment, and so I can start building up my layers. Now I've cut a piece of acetate. This will be my window. This needs to be mounted on the back of my cardstock here so that none of the little things that I put inside shake loose. Now this first layer where the acetate sits needs to be dead flat. So I'm just going to use my Express It double-sided extra strength high tack tape because I know that that will stick pretty much anything, anywhere. And then I'm just going to lay the acetate over the background. Sorry for the noise. And press it down. That way I get a really good seal and a fabulous first layer. Now, the other thing I'm doing is I'm wiping off my bench between each layer, just in case I get grubby bits anywhere. Because when you've added this much Lindy spray, you might need to give it a little bit of a shot of fixative because some of the glitter does come off, some of that shimmer, but only because I've added so much of it. Now, next is going to be my gorgeous little deers. And I would like these hard up against the front here so that they don't get any shakers in front of them. So to do that, I'm going to add tape. Now keep in mind, I've cut a circle, so some of this will peek through. Now once again, I'm going to double down on my tape. And what I mean by that is I'm going to flip this over and add a layer of tape to the acetate as well. Just because I don't want any sequins or glitter sneaking under this front layer. Now I just have to put layer A over layer B. Now that's not quite as perfect as I might have liked, but it might be as close as I can get. Now the next layer is going to require some foam mounting tape. And the one I've chosen isn't particularly thick. Again, it's from Express It because I know it's going to stick really well. But you can always add double layers of this if you want a really thick chunky card. But for my purposes, this will be just perfect. Now I want to put this just a bit further down so that there's room for the glitter to sit below the little deers. Now that's going to peek through, so I'm going to need to cut that off a bit. There we go. Now it won't peek through. Now make sure those corners meet perfectly so that nothing escapes. Now just so you've got a stable surface to work on, I'm also going to add some tape to this bottom section here, just to make putting the card together a bit easier. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the tape on here and it's going to be just thick enough to add some glitter and some shimmery stuff so that this card shakes. So time to mount this onto the card with the branches. Now while we're at it, I may as well add this layer to the card. So I've just got a little Tim Holtz distressing tool. Just going to run this around the edge. That slightly shabby look. And just so I don't get distracted, I'll do that now on this top layer as well. Seems a shame to cover up that beautiful pink background, but okay, so I've got all my layers together, and from here it's about embellishing, and I enjoy that part so much. So you can see that I'm going to have those gorgeous deers highlighted against the background, and anything that I add in here as shaker elements is just going to help make that look even prettier. But you know what? I think I want that even higher. So I'm going to add another layer of double-sided tape on the back here. That'll just give all my shaker bits more places to move around. Now, if you've got some skinny tape as well, you could also go down the sides just to make sure it's dead flat, but I don't think it's really going to matter that much. As long as all of the shaker bits are stuck inside, and they're going to be, then this should work perfectly. But that is just going to give me a little bit more height for my shakers to move around. So, let's get embellishing. Alright, so I've been sitting here for about an hour now off camera playing around with all my supply stash, trying to figure out how to decorate the last few bits of the card, and I think I'm happy with what I've chosen now. So I'm going to add a little bit of stickles to various bits to add some extra glitter and a snowy effect. I'm going to add some Crafty Sparkles glitter called Ice Crystals, strangely enough, into the shaker. I'm also going to add some little sequin mix into the shaker. And I have a little pack of mini glitters. These are actually nail art glitters, but I have a whole stash of them and they're great for card baking. So I'm going to add these as well. I'm going to use my Copic marker R85 to colour some of the little star sequins so that they match my rose gold theme. I've got some gorgeous Prima, little gemstone stickers that I'm going to add sort of scattered around the card. I have a few little mini flat back pearls, and of course I've got my beautiful Prima flowers and leaves, some little mini Christmas decorations, and a bit of crystal bling here as well. I've also got a little mini word joy, and I'm going to have to colour that so it fits in with my background, perhaps a pale pink. And of course I've put some ribbon together, and I've just taped this together with a little piece of double-sided tape. So time to start putting my card together, and I'm quite excited to see how this turns out. Oh, and of course a beautiful little star brad. So that I can add the snowflake, I've just used my tweezers to poke a hole here. And I can pop the snowflake through. Okay, part one. Oh, there's going to be glitter everywhere by the time I've finished. Oh well. Now, all we've got left to do is add the shaking elements, the glitter and the sequins, etc., and then embellish the card. Now this is the bit that I find most fun, but sometimes it can take me an hour to sit there with all my embellishments, picking just the perfect things. And sometimes I don't have exactly what I want. And as it happens, I thought I'd bought mini pine cones for this Christmas card, but I hadn't. So I've had to make do with some of Prima's beautiful flowers. So not exactly a hardship there. So if I add all of my little sequins and things right on that white spot here, then layer this over the top, it'll be absolutely perfect. Now, what you'll notice I'm doing is I've picked the center of where my shaker will sit, and I'm going to show you the world's easiest way to add your shaker elements to the card. Now what I do is, you noticed that I taped up the back of the card already, so I know exactly where my front elements are all going to sit. I've got that double layer of foam double-sided tape, so I've got lots of room for the shaking bits to move around. And all I'm going to do is add them to the exact center of where that cutout is. Just make a little pile. Now at this point, if you'd like any of the little jewelry things to be showing through at the back, this is where you need to add them. And of course, if you'd like to add anything that looks a little bit like stars, now's the time to do that as well. So I'm tipping a little glitter, a little sequins, a little beady bits, a few little crystal-y things, and then I can just take the protective backing off the tape and pop that right over the top. No mess, no fussing about with trying to pour the little shaker pieces in through a hole and then tape the hole up afterwards. None of that fussy stuff. Just make it as simple as possible. So you get your background ready, you get your front piece ready, and then you just put those shaking elements all in a little pile. I've stuck my ribbon down. I'm going to attach that on the back here. Now, I don't like leaving much to chance, so I'm going to add a little glossy accents onto this card back as well, just to make sure that nothing comes apart. Okay, so this is all nicely pressed down. I've made sure all of the tape is making contact with the background, as is all of the glue. So I can start building my layers, and this will be ready to go. So simple, and that is my best tip for the shaker card, to make it so much less difficult to create. And now all we have to do is add all of the beautiful embellishments. And a lot of people work differently. In fact, everybody works differently. But for me, when I'm building up my layers of flowers, I like to put everything on the card first and see where it sits, make sure I've got my positioning correct. Then I usually take a little photo on my phone, just so I know where everything went and where I was happy with having it. So I'm going to speed this up, but I will show you what I'm doing, because I'll be adding pearls, the little Prima gems, and the flowers. Then layer from the bottom up, and I use glossy accents all the time because it holds just perfectly. Once it's dry, nothing will shift. And of course it's clear, so if you make any little mistakes, you can't really see them. Now I'm just using a Copic marker at the moment to colour in some stars to add a little bit of pink into my glitter mix, because at the moment it's all very white and silver, and if I can, I just like to coordinate those colours. So I start building up from the crystals and then add some of the leaves. Now, while the glossy accents is still wet, you can reposition those and get them exactly where you want them to go, so you get the most perfect frame for all of the flowers and additional elements on the top. And then I've got some of my beautiful Prima flowers, but what I've done is I've taken off the lowest petal because they were just a little bit too big for what I wanted here. So taking off that last petal just means that they fit on the card a bit better. So I've done that with the large flower and the smaller two, and I can keep these and make smaller flowers with them later. Then of course I like to let that dry, if I can, just a little, so that nothing wiggles and moves around. If I'm impatient, I add the flowers over the top and then weight these down with something. Not something too heavy, just enough so that they make contact with the glue and stick to the card. Now once the flowers are dry, it's time to add all of those additional little elements that help fill out the piece. In this case, I'm adding some wonderful little white berries, some of those gorgeous Prima crystals, and then I've used the tails that I've pulled off the back of the leaves and off the little crystal-y things. You know, when you cut them off, it's a bit too long. So I've twisted these around my little tweezers and made my own little curly embellishments that I've then tucked in amidst the leaves. Now, I don't like to waste things, and of course, when you do this, they're already perfectly coordinated, so you've got something almost ready-made. You don't need to do much to it. Now, to finish this off, I'm just adding a touch of Stickles glitter to a few of the little ends of those twisted wires, It serves two purposes. Number one, it seals the end of the wire so it's not rough and scratchy. And if it's got any coating, it stops that wire coating coming off. And also it adds that final touch of bling. And you know me, I love my bling, so I had to do this. So a little bit of gunmetal and a little bit of frosted lace, and the card is finished. And now that everything's dry, we have our finished shaker card. So we have the beautiful rose gold flowers from Prima over here, matched with some of the little rose gold accents from Prima. The lovely silver background with the two different silver colours mixed with the Prima papers. Yum. And as it's dried, the Copic marker on this little wood, the wood has taken the colour differently in different spots. So it's actually got a bit of variation and I love it. It kind of matches the colours over here. So this has turned out, excuse me for the reflections, super, super pretty. All those little pearls when you get up close. Little spots of Lindy's, the little shimmer from all the glitters and everything inside the shaker, which shakes beautifully, is just exactly what I was after. And you can see all these little elements just go together to help finish it off. So I'll take a few photos and show you some beautiful close-ups so you can get a really good look at this beautiful shaker card. So I hope you've enjoyed all of my best secrets for Christmas shaker cards, and I hope that this has inspired you to give something a go for yourself. Now my YouTube is one of the channels giving away a prize. So what do you have to do to win a $25 gift voucher to the Lindy's store? Really simple. You need to follow my YouTube channel and leave a comment on this post so I know you've done it. And if you're already following, tell me that too. And you need to pop over to my Instagram account, either my planning account or my crafting account, and I'll put the details down below in the description, and follow there as well. And I'll pick a very special winner to get that Lindy's voucher. And I'll announce the winner on the 10th of December. Don't forget, if you liked this, subscribe because there'll be lots more coming.